Welcome to Locked On Cavs for Friday, March 10th. It is a mailbag episode of Locked On Cavs. All your questions answered on this one.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. All right, I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell, second day in a row in person. You can't see him. Producer Jake Stevens, Marrier on Spotify, your music platform of choice, is on the other side of that camera, keeping track of everything as we go here. Thanks again to Astro Radio for providing the music. Mailbag episode today. First question, if the Cavs could add any one player in the league, who would that be? And if that one player even exists? That's from Jake Arendale on YouTube. Evan, I want to say we need to put some parameters on this.
Say that's a loaded question.
Because
I could say Luka Doncic or like Kevin Durant.
My brain went to Durant because if you're going to add like a really easy to fit superstar to this group, it's you get Kevin Durant and he's just going to be awesome and do what he does. So who comes to mind for you? I've made a little list on our doc, but like when I say, Evan, who comes to mind for you is who's a name? Give me a name.
Off the top of my head, just to round out this rotation, I guess. It has to be 3-point shooting and defense. So that's such a hard, like perimeter defense to be specific. So it's like Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, like pie in the sky scenario, but are we saying more realistically at this point?
I'm not even. I think we can like dream here, but I think we should avoid picking like stars because I think Kawhi or PG,
they're in the star category.
And like also you have to then deal with like the maintenance of Kawhi Leonard and the maintenance of Paul George, and like I think there are other options that are like not at that level that are also very impactful.
I'm gonna bounce it to you because this is a really good question. Like,
okay, I'm
really pondering this one because there's a lot of names that come to mind, but I want to hear. Okay, I see your list and it makes more sense, but yes. I'm gonna think of some other options.
Okay, I here's my list, and I'll start with I think what would be the dream one. That's Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets now was with the Phoenix Suns. You think about a defensive genius, a really emerging scorer that adds you on ball stuff, is really long, can defend multiple spots, can be the wing guy, can be the point of attack guy. That's a name that came to mind, but he's also like ascending, in a way now that is like really exceeding his role.
Say he's like borderline star.
I mean, he's like 30, like in 5 straight games or something like that. Like
he's balling out for the Nets right now. Like he was playing very well for the Suns, obviously in a more limited role with Phoenix,
right? But you could see him like coming back and being like the fourth guy off of Garland and Mitchell and Mobley, and you're in good shape. Yeah, I went then to Andrew Wiggins. Because think about what Andrew Wiggins was for the Warriors in their title win last year, and think about how useful that player would be on the current version of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I mean, for the finals version of the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins was the second best perimeter defender, I'd say, behind Klay Thompson when he's physically healthy, or maybe Draymond.
But I mean, he was past Wiggins. I mean, he was past Thompson last year, like by far.
In terms of longevity and like availability, yes.
But I mean, even in the
playoffs,
in the title run last year, Klay was not good. Klay was not good and back until this year, which
fair.
Wiggins was like a legitimate all-star, a really, really great player last year. And him not being what he was and being away from the Warriors right now is a big deal of why that team, I think, isn't as good.
That's a fair argument at the end of the day. Like, Wiggins isn't a guy I considered. Like, that's the one that like maybe raise an eyebrow. But yeah, he does provide you the 3-point shooting in the defense. But at the same time, I do have one like pause to it is like maybe Wiggins fits in more than fits out, to quote one LeBron James, just because of the fact like the Warriors had an established pecking order. Like Andrew Wiggins would like come into this Cavs situation and like, I have the championship pedigree. I'm a former first overall pick, blah, 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 an all-star at this point. Like I am going to call the shots and kind of boss. I mean, Mitchell has the most clout on this Cavs roster, but like other than that, like Andrew Wiggins can kind of bully some of these guys. He's like, I have a ring, none of you do.
Yeah, that might not go well. The other name one of the other names in here, I think would have the same concern because the reporting about what he wants is that he wants a bigger role, and that's OG Anunoby. OG on this team would be like immediately the starting three, immediately just kind of perfect in that role. But he's going to get paid a lot of money, and he's going to want a bigger role. But at the same time, we are looking at this and I think and saying this is like dream scenario. So like you can worry about some of these things. I think like in terms of skill set, like Wiggins, OG, Bridges were like the top three of my list in terms of like plus kind of role guys.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like especially like plus role guys that have the ability to like teeter towards stardom. Like Mikal Bridges has like the cleanest path, just like how the Nets are built right now. But like Andrew Wiggins, if he isn't the third, fourth, fifth banana for the Warriors, depending on how the night's going, or even OG Anunoby, just because the Raptors have like an established pecking order, at least guys that go ahead of him, like it's tricky because they're like the guys who kind of like teeter on being like, oh yeah, they're like a very high end role player, like very useful just guy to like a star. And like Dorian Finney-Smith kind of fits that build. Like we didn't touch on him much.
He is on my list.
That's what I'm saying.
He's on my list.
When I saw the name and I'm surprised, I'm like, I'm gonna mention DFS because like DFS is like that dude who is a bit of a garbage man. He grinds on defense. At least he provides you the 3-point shooting. He's a little older, so like he doesn't have like a little bit more of the runway to develop and become like that star-ish player. But he is in my Chris Middleton tier, like a younger Chris Middleton, not the currently Chris Middleton we see where there's a lot of toxicity surrounding him, but like Chris Middleton tier.
What toxicity?
Some Bucks fans are down on Chris Middleton.
Okay, those people,
he's unavailable.
Those people are weird. He just played like the best game he's had this year. Like, they're fine. They're going to win the title.
Those guys where you can like, if you had the ability to clone them and copy and paste them in every team, you would just make every team across the board better. And DFS fits that mold.
100%. He would be like a name I call in the summer if I'm the Cavs, right? It's like give me Dorian Finney-Smith. Okay, one other name is a nostalgia play. That is a small, that could be the backup 4, backup small ball 5 for you that I think they kind of miss right now is Larry Nance Jr. Yeah,
I think it's weird because when you watch Larry Nance in Portland, you're like, oh, wow, he's cooked. The Cavs made the right call. But it's more so Chauncey Billups just couldn't utilize Larry Nance's skill set.
I think that's fair.
Larry is just such like a glue guy where he provides you playmaking, defense, rebounding, some 3-point shooting when he isn't hesitating that he'd rather pass the ball. Obviously, like the interior scoring as well. Like Larry Nance just gives you a little bit of everything. And I think maybe not on the same tier as Dorian Finney-Smith in terms of just the shooting aspect, but like gives you enough of things that like just unlocks so much for the Cavs. Just looking at it, like I understand why you traded Larry Nance. One, he approached you. If you're the Cavs and saying like, hey, I'd like to play in a different situation, you're able to get Larry Markkinen, rehab Larry Markkinen enough to get Donovan Mitchell. Like 10 times out of 10, you make these trades like in the sequence events. But like,
Markkinen was also on my initial list, and I was like, I can't do like.
I have one more name to throw out there as but I'm gonna finish my Nance point. Yeah. But yeah, like on this current iteration of the Cavs, you're like, he makes a lot of sense, whether it's the starting 3 or like the guy who plays backup 3, 4, 5 for this team.
Well,
like,
but even like the New Orleans Nance has shifted back to like being a 4-5, and
that's what I'm getting at. Like Nance is unlocked under Willie Green, like he wasn't under Chauncey Billups, and he looks like the Cleveland Larry Nance.
Yeah, and they've like just theoretically you could have him play the 3 again, but like I think he's really settled into a really great role of like being a 4-5, and I think like that as like a alternative for you and like a guy that I think could fit with what Mobley does and cover some of the Mobley stuff when Mobley's playing the 5 make a lot of sense. Who's your last name?
Royce O'Neal. He makes a lot of sense. Just like
make Donovan Mitchell happy.
Make Donovan Mitchell happy, but he's like the bargain bin option of all these names we've mentioned. Yeah. He's more on the Larry Nance Jr. tier. Like Dorian Finney-Smith is like a step above him, but like Royce O'Neal provides you the defense. He provides you the 3-point shooting, sometimes some passing and playmaking as well. And again, like Chris said, it makes Donovan Mitchell happy because it's like one of his best friends in the league. And if you want to make your franchise guy happy and maybe not sign to a max, you can sign Evan Mobley to that max. There's a little way to grease the palms and do it.
Yeah, if I was going to pick like a star, I would just take KD because like it's
KD.
It would just be KD. Like it's KD or like LeBron because it's LeBron. But like think about how seamless
KD
would fit.
I would sacrifice the spacing just to watch Giannis, Mobley, and Allen wreck people defensively.
It would just be so. I don't even know how that works. Like it's crazy. Offensively, it'd be fun. You'd have to like probably Drew Allen. Okay, next question. Question 2. Do you think Caris LeVert has earned an extension? Is sign and trade a possibility? This is from Alex Gilligy on YouTube. Earned is an interesting wording here for me because I think he is good enough as an NBA player to get a next contract. I think that is very just true about Caris LeVert.
Fair assessment.
But is he, so like he's making $8 million more a year than Alec Burks this year. Is he $8 million a year better than Alec Burks, even though he's a little bit younger? No. And then the sign and trade part of this, I think, is trickier because if a team is going to take back Caris LeVert in a sign and trade, they are hard capping themselves. And why would you hard cap yourself for Caris LeVert? You hard cap yourself to get star players and get them in your building, and that's about it. It is not worth cutting off passive flexibility if you're a good team to hard cap yourself for Caris LeVert. This also to some degree applies for the Cavs. If there's someone they want to go and get, they'll have to consider what the hard cap means for them if they go sign and trade and pursue that as an avenue to get better in the summer. So, Evan, I don't have an idea of like how to feel about this. I think he deserves another contract. I think it's possible they sign him to one and just to trade him, and it's a bigger number than he's maybe even worth just because you want to trade it.
I mean, yeah, he's going to get another contract. He's still in his mid-20s at this point. He is
28?
20, okay, late 20s. So he's the same age as me. Chris is looking this up as we're
you're 30 and I'm 29. He might be younger than us.
And Jake's like 14.
He's 20, 20 and he's a 1994 baby, so he's younger than us. He's our age. We're contemporaries.
We're fine.
You're 30, 2 years. 2 years. Just own it. It's fine.
Listen, man, I'm getting older and older, and you guys are staying younger and younger. But in Caris LeVert's case, he fits the archetype of a player where he provides you the size. You can look at like the tape from when he was with Brooklyn and maybe not so injury prone. Maybe there's like, obviously the cancer scare of Indiana does give you pause. Like there are legitimate health concerns, but like if you look at like what Caris LeVert is on paper and just like look at the numbers, you're like, okay, I can sell myself on that. Like, yeah, he's going to get an extension because he plays a position in need for nearly every NBA team who's like, I can get some cost controlled 3-and-D depth, and that's fine. The question of earned, it's a loaded one. I made faces at the camera as you're reading it, but like, yeah, he's going to get a contract no matter what, but I don't think like with the Cavs, I question the fit. It's clear the Cavs are going to sign him to some form of extension, whether it's
they kind of have to.
I mean, whether it's Kobe Altman publicly saying like, yeah, we intend to like talk shop with him, or more so they kept him past the deadline and didn't use his contract as a trade chip. Like that's a pretty clear indication to me. Like there's something in the water with Caris LeVert, at least sticking with Cleveland through next season. And from there, it's a lot of uncertainty because again, there's the health concerns. He could get a shorter term deal. There could be some clauses in the contract to make it a little bit more palatable, but I view Caris LeVert in my heart of hearts, like as a trade chip, just because it's such a clunky fit. Unless like you're ready to punt on Ricky Rubio and say like, okay, we're going to find a different backup point guard and just keep Caris LeVert as like our primary, like 6-man option. Like that's a way to shift it. But like with those two on the roster and those two on the payroll long-term with like Rubio already there, and we're assuming LeVert's going to get there, it's a little tricky to figure out his fit. And again, naturally he's going to get a contract. I just don't know if like, yeah, he'll be a Cavalier in 2 years' time.
It is very much a deal where you could sign him and trade him next season. And like, I don't think he's fit well with fit well with Rubio. And I don't think it's a mistake that like his best 2 games this year have come when one of Garland or out. Yeah, or one of them is out and Rubio was not back. Yeah, it is not a mistake that like that is the most comfortable he's looked all season.
Had his career best game as a Cavalier against the Celtics because Darius Garland was still out, and like him and Mitchell both dropped 41 apiece in the Garden. Like, and great, that is the apex of what Caris LeVert could be for you if like you need him to play 35 minutes. But like, yeah, that's awesome, but you need to give him the opportunity to handle the rock to do that, and like that's the trouble in itself.
All right, let's go into our first ad break. We're gonna come back. We got more mailbag questions. First one will be about JB Bickerstaff. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things. But sometimes life gets you bogged down, and you may feel overwhelmed. And you may not feel like you're showing up in the way that you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you, because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything life throws at you. You could feel overwhelmed, all of that stuff, and it can be a lot. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It is convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Wow. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockdown today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp.com/lockdown. All right, back here, Locked On Cavs. they're making gang signs at each other.
Jake and I are making faces at each other in the ad read, so I made him laugh. I'm good.
That's good. He didn't recognize your Days Getting Confused reference, which is troubling for me. I made a There Will Be Blood reference the other day, and you didn't recognize that either, and it's really hurting me, Jake.
So editor Jake trivia is he can't talk because he's a mute.
Yeah, we don't have a mic for him.
He's just gonna use the stereotypical YouTuber yellow text to like talk to us, but you have to do the work for this. But he hasn't watched a movie since like 1999.
Unless it's a Star Wars. A Star Wars. How much does a Star? If I say, how much does a Star Wars even cost? Do you recognize that? Arrested Development.
Mm-hmm.
Poor baby. Okay, Michael B. Jordan. Okay, third question.
Zygote over here.
Yeah. Hayden on YouTube asked, do you think Bickerstaff's leash is too tight on some players? Players will always make a mistake, but it's hard to learn or get confidence when you're always getting pulled. Can I tell where my brain goes with this, Evan? What
Sure.
a specific player this goes to? It's Isaac Okoro.
Oh, I was going to go with two other players, but
I think Okoro, with how the stretch he had, and obviously shooting schooled off a little bit, I think Okoro has like earned enough should have earned enough trust to play through some of this. You need to get him those reps. He's at that stage in his career where you need to find out what you have in him. I think you got to let him play through some of these ups and downs and give him those minutes. I understand you're trying to win, and maybe you're like, okay, like I got to try these other things and stuff, but like he's going to be solid for you defensively. He's going to defend point of attack stuff. I think if like they play the Knicks in the first round, you're going to need him to play 30 minutes just to be your best option on Jalen Brunson. And you're going to have to let him play through some of the offensive stuff. And that is just a thing. So for me, I think sometimes the answer here is yes. I understand why you go heavy minutes for your best guys and you ride stuff that works. Like it's why Lamar Stevens played the whole fourth quarter in overtime against Boston, because Lamar came in, stepped up, and did a great job. But I think Okoro to me is like the classic example of like, you got to give him just a little more run because he's a younger player and needs to play through some of this stuff. It will pay off in the long term, I think, if you go that route.
I agree with you. I think with Isaac's case, at least, it's interesting because Bickerstaff fully admitted last year, like Isaac was in a box in terms of just player development. And you've asked him and I've asked him, like, how hard is that balancing act between like winning now and developing these younger players so they become more sustainable and useful for you now in the future, etc. But Okoro is an interesting case study because he is your top 5 pick in the pandemic year, and like you're expecting him to do big things, and he hasn't quite had that leap yet, but you're seeing glimpses of it. And I agree, like maybe he does need a longer leash, but I think like he's at least earned Bickerstaff's trust enough. And I disagree with the Stevens point just because like I think that was just Bickerstaff throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something
but I'm saying he wrote it out is what I'm saying. It's like in that moment Stevens was playing so well that he's
we agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So like he leans heavily on the starters. I think like Jetty Osman and now Dean Wade recently, like again, I maybe I'm obsessed with this, but like Dean Wade was given the spot in the Cavs rotation and they benched Kevin Love for it. And now you're seeing Dean Wade play like 5-6 minutes a night. And sure, Kevin Love isn't great with the Heat. He's expected to play as we're recording this prior to the Heat game against the Cavs as well. So it hasn't been great, but like obviously Bickerstaff is trying other options. Like Danny Green isn't there, but like I don't consider Danny Green in this equation. But like Jetty Osman for me is the guy because we were talking about this over dinner as we had our company meeting. In terms of just like advanced metrics and like on-off numbers, like Jetty Osman's like a huge net positive for the Cavs, but he has one or maybe two bad moments, and rightfully so. Like Malcolm Brogdon cooked him alive the other night against the Celtics, but like JB's just like, all right, I've seen enough. Yanks Jetty and only plays in like 6-7 minutes, but like Osman in theory, like maybe this is our new Dylan Willer, but like the idea of Jetty Osman.
No, because Jetty Osman actually hasn't been able to play NBA basketball games for a long enough time.
That's fair.
And like has like been around. Like Dylan, God bless him, just like it's just
but like the idea of Jetty Osman on this team makes more sense just from as an observer and a guy who like JB questions the use of analytics and more so relies on his gut. So like I agree with your stance. Like
he does not like
Bickerstaff plays his stars way too much. I think him shortening his rotation. I mean, not even now, but like he shortened it during the All-Star break.
He's
like,
but it got
start tight.
But then it got even
tighter with injuries too. So
can I just tell you what I think the difference between Osman and I think we're
defense is the Okoro, but
there's also just like a longer track record of like he's the same guy. Okoro has like been evolving in a way.
That's fair. Okoro is a bit of a steady Eddie compared to
you're seeing him add and improve stuff where I feel like Jetty is the same exact player he was a year ago. And with like he shoots threes, He's very
same exact player in the fact that he's just so up and down,
and his skills are kind of the same. It's like he's going to take threes.
Oh, okay.
He's going to cap off avalanches, and he's not going to be a good defender. The Dean thing is kind of trickier to me because he's been just awful since if you go back and look at since Kevin Love
I woke up this morning and thought about those numbers you shared with me for the Wednesday show. And
it's like 20-something%.
It's like that meme of Homer Simpson laying angry in bed, like the covers are over my face, cat's laying on my chest wanting breakfast. I'm just like,
it's not great. And at that point, I wonder if you're just like, okay, like I have to move off of this. Like
I mean, you have to, because he's not giving you anything. We're recording this before the Heat game. I wonder if maybe Bickerstaff does give a longer leash to somebody else in this rotation, because Rubio's a guy who's been cut off a lot too lately. It's been a lot of LeVert, and just like a lot of Jetty Osman at times too, but like it's mostly just the core four and Okoro.
Yeah, all right.
Playing the entire game.
Quick question number 4 here. Cavs, this is from my name is Moses on Twitter. Go High Bobcats. Cavs are currently 23rd in opponent 3-point percentage. Is that more luck or scheme? Very short answer on this. Little column A, little column B.
I agree.
3-point shooting is based on luck. There's some variance baked into this. But are at times the Cavs getting scrambled and leaving shooters open on the back end, particularly in the corner, losing track? Yes. I don't know what the exact number was against Boston, but there was a long stretch where teams had shot no worse than 46% on corner threes against the Cavs. That's a little bit of luck, but that is also like you're leaving guys open in the corner, and that's a scheme thing.
I agree with you. I think it is column A, column B. Like any shot in the NBA is a little bit of luck, because like you don't know if it's going to go in. Like as confident as you are.
Threes are that dialed up.
Yeah, they are. So like the Cavs, a little bit of it is schematic. I think the Cavs do use a lot of drop coverage. Like they did play a little bit of zone against the Celtics the other night, and it didn't work, but they at least tried it. They did a little bit of box in one with Evan Mobley being like the Kevin Garnett last season. And
can we tangent on this for 1 second?
Sure.
I kind of don't understand why. I kind of understand because you're maybe not as big in some ways. I kind of wonder if they're going to break that out in the playoffs.
I think they will. I think like we saw in whenever the last Heat game at home for Cleveland was, like you saw a little bit of JB Bickerstaff showing his hand, like, all right, I'm gonna put Evan Mobley on Jimmy Butler and just mess around and find out. And like Mobley was super effective in that role, and then they kind of pulled back from it, because I think obviously if you're just like looking ahead, like Miami could be a playoff opponent. Maybe you don't want to give them enough footage on this, at least. I don't know, but like the playoffs are just a different beast. Like Ty Lue would frustrate Cavs fans to no end during the regular season. The Cavs would frustrate fans to no end during the regular season, because they would just coast the majority of regular season games, and they just flip a switch and tactically just destroy the Atlanta Hawks, the starting 5 Eastern Conference Player of the Month Atlanta Hawks, in like just insane fashion, because Ty Lue, and maybe JB Bickerstaff has this switch to him too, where he can just like game plan and prep things. But just to go back to the question, I think it is luck. I think it is defensive stuff. I just think maybe the Cavs are keeping some vanilla concepts out there, and they're willing to ride with the opportunities because they have so much overwhelming paint pressure with Mobley and Allen, and also like LeVert, Rubio, Garland, Mitchell, all of them to an extent. Like they can kind of maybe not go shot for shot, but like they're willing to take the gamble because like we have a more efficient opportunity at the basket waiting for us.
Yeah, and I do wonder when we get to the playoffs if we will see them like bounce around a little, like just kind of when they get scrambled, just be that effort goes up 10% and you close out better on some of these shots. So I'm curious to see next year where it ends up as far as their 3-point defense.
Absolutely.
Like, does it like go back to like average, and like does that, now that we have a couple years of data, like what would that tell us? But
a lot of it does hinge on the personnel they maybe have this summer too, because that can skew things more towards an offensive approach versus a defensive approach.
And if they add like a Royce O'Neal or like a Yuta Watanabe, they add like a bigger wing, maybe that kind of helps you cover up for some of this stuff, because they do skew smaller with their personnel. Even like, I mean, Okoro is starting at the 3 and he's like 2 guard size more than he's bigger modern NBA wing sized. All right, let's go on a break. We're going to come back. 2 more mailbag questions to wrap up this Friday episode. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point, well, really past the midway point of the NBA season is here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Right now, they have the NBA Star Parlay Builder in the app. That is a fun way to pick through the best games of the night and give some matchups. And with the playoffs coming, you can bet on title contenders, MVP. They have the Nuggets at +800 to win the title. I think that's a
questionable.
That's a really good team that could win the title. And if you're saying, can I get value on a bet? 8-1 is not bad for a team that absolutely could win the title. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger chance at payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment worth FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, last 2 questions. Question 5 here we get from Gem Data via email. What kind of teams gives the Cavs the most trouble? Physical/big teams or athletic quick teams? Evan,
a little bit of column A, column B. I think if you look at teams like Toronto, they are physically bigger at times. They just play more physically, but more so the fact that, like, they have a lot of 6'8" dudes that can defend well on the perimeter and shoot threes, as Chris told me once. Like teams like Boston, sure, Cleveland's 3-1 against them, but like the Celtics on paper,
Boston's the one that my brain immediately went to.
Them or just Milwaukee, just because they have so many grinders. Like you have Drew Holiday, who can cause a lot of issues. Chris Middleton, now that he's healthy, causes a lot of problems. You have Giannis, you have Brook Lopez, you have Bobby Portis, who's playing well on defense too. Like the Bucks have just enough personnel on both ends of the court. And if you watch Cleveland play Milwaukee this year, you have a lot of like case footage on this too. Like Milwaukee's a team. So the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference, and then the Toronto Raptors. Like if the Raptors keep going up and up and up, and maybe the Knicks somehow cool off of the last stretch of the season, like if I'm Cleveland and I draw Toronto in the first round, I'm a little nervous.
I'm not. I think like the Pirtle thing kind of makes that simpler for them. As much as Toronto's offense now looks a lot better when they just have a functional big who could hit screens, I think that helps. And of note, the Raptors are 6.5 games back of the Knicks. So I think we're okay there.
I think we're okay, but let me ask you this before you give your answer.
Yeah.
Rewind the clock when you're advocating for Jakob Poeltl for the Cavs. Would you have rather had Jared Allen at the time or Jakob Poeltl?
Jared Allen.
Okay.
I think Jared's better because he's a little better at the free throw line, and I think just a little more of a better threat at the rim. But I will say Jared Allen has not been good for a couple weeks, and that is
unfortunate.
He was very bad against Boston.
So what's your answer?
It is a team like Boston. It is a team that like has like a ton of size on the perimeter and at the guard spots that really can push the Cavs at that pressure point. And they can make it take a lot of threes. Those are like the 2 things that I think the Cavs stylistically and personnel wise are most adept to. So I would say Boston, I would say Milwaukee. And I think the Clippers would be like a really, really like a very healthy Clippers team. I think would be a really, really hard matchup.
On paper, yeah.
Like if you let's say like I don't think this is in the cards this year, but let's say like you get the Clippers in the finals and everyone's healthy. Kawhi and PG is just like such a big. They're
gonna grind Garland and Mitchell.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
like especially if Kawhi can't turn that switch and like do all that stuff and defensively, which he hasn't as much done this year, but offensively he's looked unguardable.
But it's not just that; but it's like it's the tactical aspect. Like you have Ty Lue versus JP Bickerstaff going its head like blow to blow too, and like I like what JP does defensively. I have questions about how the Cavs function offensively, but like Ty Lue just has the pedigree of like making just adjustments to make your life as frustrating as possible if you're his opponent in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the playoffs for JB, I think, as much as Garland is going to have to go through that, Mobley.
Yeah, JB has to go through it too because with Houston, he was the interim coach, and he said the other night that was a miserable experience because he's just like coaching for his life. And then like in Memphis, a somewhat similar situation, but like was never the guy there. But like in Cleveland, when John Boehline stepped down, like they didn't say JB was the interim coach. They said like he is the head coach. They signed him to an extension immediately. They said through the media that this was the plan, blah, 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 whatever. But
amazing spin work.
It is. But more than anything, like Bickerstaff hasn't had that opportunity. He's one of the younger coaches in the NBA. Like him and Joe Mazzulla, I think, are 2 of the youngest coaches in the NBA currently. So yeah, give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe let him learn and grow from this. And again, it's not a championship year for Cleveland. It's going to be learning experiences and maybe figuring out like what are your biggest flaws come playoff time.
All right. We got 2 questions we're going to pair both from Twitter. First is from Baby Left Hook, who asks, what role players outside of the core 4 have developed the most? Maybe it's the recent play, but I'm not sure anyone but Okoro and Lamar among the role players has improved his game from last year. Do the Cavs have a specific development coach, and do they think there's an issue? And then that pairs with a question from Tyler Daniel Bell on Twitter, who said, will the Cavs keep Sam Merrill on the main roster? And if so, can they please play him? We need off-ball movement and spacing so badly. I want to hit the Sam Merrill thing first because, like, I understand why people, like, are like, oh, play the new guy, play, like, the shiny new toy. I can't believe we're going to have 2 Family Guy references in this episode. I really blame you for this, Evan, personally. But Peter Griffin being like, it could, like, you're just like, you get the sailboat, but it could be like the prize. It's like
a box. A boat's a boat, but a mystery box, a box could be anything.
Yeah, of course you knew this. Like
what?
It can even be a boat. So like you see these guys that like I'm sorry, no one is like crushed. I like the charge is a cool thing.
Sam Merrill looked promising with the Bucks. He
had a torn ACL.
Tore his ACL with the Grizzlies last year, and like that had issues.
But are there any of these people like actually like crushing charge tape? And like, see,
I think yes, because the Charge are one of the better G League squads out there. Just because
okay, but no offense,
they're healthy. But let me finish. There is also like people say like, oh, the Cavs should sign Mamadi Diakite to like a contract and sign Sharif Cooper. Folks, there is also a bit of a reason why teams are hesitant to sign like Sam Merrill, Sharif Cooper, even Jamarco Pickett or other guys, even Chandler Vaudrin, who's shown flashes, just like a bigger point guard. Like these are guys that are trying to learn and grow. And Sam Merrill said like he's aware of the fact that like this is going to be a grind. Like he had offers to play overseas, but he'd rather play in the NBA, and he knows he's going to have to climb up the ranks and earn it. And we talked about it when the Cavs signed him. I think for Sam Merrill, at least, it's like he has zero experience or exposure. He said during his first media availability as a Cavalier, it's the first time he met JV Bickerstaff.
Yeah, and you don't take like a guy like this and be like, hey, you're in the rotation now on a playoff team, on a team that is a top 4 team in the East.
You have to earn the trust of your coaches. You have to know it's a whole new first day of school.
He also just like might not be good enough, and that's okay. But fine. Like, these guys are not guaranteed to be good.
The thing is, like on 10-day guys or guys who are like signed like on buyout deals like Danny Green, like it's not like they're going to be immediate contributors. Kevin Love is like the weirdest aberration because he's starting at power forward for the Heat currently, and he's not doing great at it. But either way,
Sam Merrill was brought in to be depth because Dylan Windler went to the G League and they just wanted another wing. That was the whole purpose.
It is. And also more so like Windler's a free agent this offseason, maybe you just kick the can down the road on him and just not worry about it. And then you sign Sam Merrill to like the Lamar Stevens contract that he currently has, or like something that Dean Wade started with, and you work his way into the ranks that way. And he's just like your third or fourth or fifth shooting guard off the bench at times, because you have better guys in front of him. And sure, yeah, the idea of Sam Merrill is great, but there are better guys in front of him right now.
Might just not be good enough. And that's the case for like a lot of guys. As far as the other question goes, I think Okoro has developed. I think Lamar has somewhat developed. I think, but his template has stayed the same. I think Dean, except for this recent stretch, like has gotten better at certain things. It's particularly on the defensive end. He moves his feet better. He holds up against switches a little bit better. But like, I think what this question is maybe getting at is that the Cavs have not had a guy that has been like a complete, like someone that is like their project, and like they don't get like a Max Strus or like a Duncan Robinson or a Gabe Vincent, guys that like they've turned into for at least for stretches. Duncan Robinson did play 17 minutes the other night.
Miami Heat player, but proceed.
But like, I mean, like, but that's
the Heat are very good at the Sioux Falls Skyforce developing like back end rotation.
Yeah.
Like you can go to like Tyler Johnson. You can go to
I mean, like, I don't know if anyone thought Hero was going to be as good as he's turned out to be in that situation, right? Like
maybe Tyler Hero thought he was going to be that
probably
situation.
And like, and not every team, not every success is perfect, but like, you know, there hasn't been like a massive development hit.
Josh Richardson was the other guy I was thinking of as another Miami guy.
The Spurs were really famous for this for a long time. Kawhi is like obviously the most famous example of this. It is really hard to hit on some of these, but the Cavs had not had, like, Dean Wade is like their best example of like, we got a guy in the second round undrafted and turned him into something.
Well, him and Lamar at this point.
Yeah, it's those two guys. And like, those are like fine, but like they haven't hit like in a really big way. They do have a development coach. They have a shooting coach. They have the G League. They have guys that focus on development. But like, do you want to argue that like maybe Garrity being in the G League means you should like go find your version of Phil Handy? Like, I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to like say like invest in that, invest. Like, I think one of the beauties of like a guy like having like a Phil Handy type on your main staff is that like he's not only going to work on development stuff, and I like Antonio Lang does this with Darius, and
say Lang works with the guards. I know
like Walton has worked with Mobley. Like there are guys.
Walton's like exclusively like Mobley and some of the other bigs too. Like Dan Jarrell works like mostly with the big guys to begin with. Like there's guys who are different pedigrees, and like JV just kind of trusts them. And like Garrity did a lot of guard stuff, but like has a pedigree of like player development too. And I think like if you ask any of the guards on the Charge, like, I learned a lot from Mike Garrity, but then you have like Boobie Gibson who's something about the shooting coaching, and Boobie comes up and works with like Darius Donovan. He works with Isaac a little bit too, just in terms of shooting stuff as well. But it's hard to break down what each coach works with because every assistant works with every player.
Yeah. That's not the point. My point is that like with Phil Handy, like someone like Phil Handy.
Oh, but Phil Handy's also like
this is what I'm saying. It's like you prioritize something like that. A guy who's like a full-on development guru on your staff. I don't think that's like a bad thing, especially when like especially as you get your roster more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I think like just making that more of a thing, and like instead of hiring like another kind of standard veteran assistant, maybe bring both of them in. You have the money to do it. Just bring in more development stuff and invest in as much as you can. I think like Garrity at the G League was like a good move for that. But I think you need to keep bringing guys in and keep spending money on that to find more guys. And I think like eventually you probably will see like a role guy that really pops for them. And maybe it ends up being Lamar. Maybe Okoro like does take a bigger step forward than we've seen so far, whatever. I mean, Darius has definitely like improved from where he was as a rookie. Yeah. Like Colin Sexton did as well. Like Sexton got better during his time in Cleveland.
Sexton got better midway into his rookie year because he started taking 3-pointers instead of long twos.
And the other part of this that I think is not something we have the time to like fully hit.
Yeah.
But like think about the way this works now is that the guys in the summer have their own coaches that are not affiliated with teams.
If you play for the Arizona Cardinals, you pay to use their facilities. Proceed.
But all of these like guys will go work with other guys, and these teams and these private coaches like have different
regiments, skill sets, practice focuses, everything.
So like you don't like the teams like the development process. There's probably like a very like great feature for someone with like the access to get some of these guys. Like how that all works, I think is interesting. Like some guys will go work with Phil Handy. Like Evan Mobley, for instance, in the summer, he works with a guy named Owen Simpson, who is a Wasserman affiliated trainer. Yep. Shea trains with him. Jalen Suggs trains with him. Like all these guys that are Wasserman clients train and have run Steven Adams. There's Chris Brickley up in New York who Donovan works with, who like has the Black Ops runs.
Like Kevin Love used to
Kevin Love. Yeah, Kevin Love's there. Melo goes there. Melo's kid goes there now. Like he has a lot of top high school guys. Like there are these really big trainers. Jamal Richards, shout out to Jamal Richardson who trains Darius and a lot of the guys in the Nashville area. Yeah. There are guys like that, but then Chuck Ellis in Philly famously trained like Dean Waiters and Wayne Ellington and the Morris twins. Like there are guys that exist, but they are doing different things than teams. And sometimes I get from talking to people about this that those communication paths are not always like one in sync.
Yeah. And I think part of it is like, obviously they're giving the guys time off and do whatever they want. They're professional athletes. They invest in their body and just make sure they can hone their craft the best way they can. But the training aspect is fascinating. Like to the questions point of the first initial question from this last batch, you obviously have Mobley, Mitchell, Garland, Allen. Those are your 4. Then you have Okoro, who's performed well. Lamar Stevens out of LA. Then it's Dean Wade and Jetty Osman. Those are your 8 guys that are like kind of developing. And like with Osman, you maybe lower your finger a little bit because Osman is kind of fully fleshed out as a player in terms of the NBA game. But like other than that, it's Robin Lopez. It was Kevin Love for a bit. It's Danny Green, Ricky Rubio, Paulo Neto. Like you have enough adults in the room that you don't have to worry about that. So like it's hard to like give a full scope. It's not like saying like the Cavs have like 15 young guys on the roster.
But and even then, that can like be like look like I don't know.
It's detrimental.
Has Jalen Green gotten better? Probably not.
I see Rockets fans talking about how Jalen Green should be the 6th man for the Rockets next year. And like that
Sengun's been the best player on that team, and it's like very funny. Jake,
editor Jake is nodding his head in agreement, but. Regardless, I think if you look from the player development aspect, like at the G League level, like the Cavs are starting to use this correctly because as long as I've been on the show, you and I were like, the Cavs don't use the charge correctly. And then they started using it with like Dean Wade and Lamar Stevens. And now you're like looking at like Isaiah Mobley, maybe Mamadi Diakite has something. Maybe you keep Sam Merrill around, whether it's with the Cavs or with the charge. And then you have guys like Jamarco Pickett have been around for a while. And then Nate Hitton's come back. And then Justin James just re-signed with the Charge as well too. Like there's a lot of guys, like I think the Cavs are now utilizing the Charge properly. Like they're just not constantly churning out, but like they're trying to look at enough people to see like, could this be a guy that we sign at like a little bit above the minimum so we can stay within our luxury tax thresholds and all the murkiness of that. And then like their emergency depth, because we know they're ready for the moment. They have a full understanding of our system. So like I think about that and like, Isaiah Mobley, I think he's going to be the backup like 4 or 5 next season.
Well, I mean, I think that is like the question, because like if they feel like he is developed correctly, then like the idea would be that he just takes the Robin Lopez roster spot.
Yes.
Or you go sign like him. He's on a deal and you sign like another like veteran option.
Mobley is your 8th, 9th man.
He
takes that Stevens role where like if his number's called, you expect him to play like 10, 15 or 5, 10 minutes.
That's the Robin Lopez. It's the center version of that. That's what
I look at Robin Lopez as like the veteran, sits on the floor and applauds everyone, and then like had like a crazy sky hook at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I would
I would put Mobley maybe a step below Stevens, but like a guy or like Bickerstaff's like, okay, nothing's working. Let's try Isaiah Mobley out. And if it works, you let him get some burn and maybe like you reward that behavior the next game or something like that and just work with it that way. And the same can be said for Diakite, who started the freaking 3 for the Cavs at one point too.
Yeah, he was in the Philly game where he was like just fouling the crap out of Embiid. We're running long.
Yeah, that's the logical role. Like that's what you can maybe do with it at this point. But yeah, we are running long.
We got to go watch an actual basketball game because we're recording this ahead of time. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Hope you guys have enjoyed these in-person episodes. Shout out to producer Jake Stevens. Again, The Marrier is on Spotify.
He
Apple
wears
Music.
2 hoodies, folks.
He's got his hood up right now. He doesn't watch movies, but maybe he can watch some movies if you listen to his music enough. I don't know. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend. And back at you on Monday. We'll talk about the Cavs 2 for against the Heat and the first game against the Charlotte Hornets. Until then, I'm Chris. That's it.